everybody, to another fun morning or afternoon, evening, night, whatever time it is for you on Code It Live. My name is Alyssa Sam, and with me I have the amazing Sam Basu. Oh, no, I always get it wrong. And we are so excited to welcome on our guest today, Roland. Hi, Roland.
Hi, guys.
So Roland has kindly agreed to teach us ABL, which I don't know what it stands for. We're going to have to get into that today.
Advanced Business Language. Yeah.
Advanced business language. Excellent.
Yeah, so folks on Code It Live, you see me and Alyssa, but Roland is, our special guest. So Roland, why don't you start out introducing yourself? What do you do?
I'm a consultant. I'm a long-time consultant at Progress Software. Started off with several Progress partners. Well, I guess I got a little bit more gray head than you have. So I'm a little bit older. I started with COBOL.
No, I'm hiding. That's why I'm always wearing a hat.
So I've been doing ABL for a very, very long time. And I'm helping our Progress partners, introducing our new latest versions, technologies, architecture, all that kind of stuff. Yep.
Yeah, advanced business language to me doesn't right away tell me what it does. So maybe it should, but what does it do?
Yeah, what does it do? It's a bit compared with a domain-specific language. So it's not a generic language that you could. I mean, if you want to create a racing game or whatever, then Progress is not the language to develop with. I mean, it's not like a. So it's specifically for business applications. It's very, very good in business logic. So the back end of a business application. So most of the Progress partners, they've written huge ERP systems, partners, end users, big ERP systems with millions and millions lines of code. And that's a soft spot of that's where Progress shines, where the ABL shines. So it's really business logic.
Okay.
Maybe it sounds a bit boring, but I mean, the thing is that's where a lot of people make money with. I mean, big ERP systems.
It runs your businesses. And we at Progress Software, we have a big portfolio of products. So we do a lot of different things, right? So you can go as bleeding edge as you want with UI and UX and design tools and, CMSs and, rules engines. And then ABL and OpenEdge is, what runs a lot of enterprise businesses. So Roland, if you're okay with us sharing your desktop, we can bring that up. Yeah. Yep. So maybe take a step back for us, if you don't mind, because ABL is very much tied to OpenEdge, right? So maybe if you want to, bring up progress.com and just walk us through, what is OpenEdge? When did this start? And is ABL something that started with OpenEdge and the whole story?
Yeah. Well, it was really the start of Progress. I mean, in '84 was the introduction of the Progress. At that time, it was called 4GL. I mean, the marketing doesn't like that anymore, so now it's called ABL. But at that time, it was called 4GL.
4GL, which stands for...
It's fourth generation language, so...
I feel like I'm always missing out on some really cool... whenever I don't get acronyms, especially because Sam's been teaching me .NET and I'm like, what does that stand for? And usually there's something back there. So sorry if it's at first I was like, is he talking about cell signal? Is it were they trying to, no. So that's not where they were going with the 4GL. It was just generation.
Here's the thing though. I mean, Roland said 84 and we're not going to give out our ages, but I don't know, Alyssa, if you were around in 84.
Oh, you're saying it was not related to cell signal?
No, 1984. I was around, but let's just say I was not coding. No, and see, not many software companies can say that they've been around for 40 plus years, right? Because this is
true.
Where it's all started with Progress. So it goes a long way back. So okay, so you said it was 4GL. That was the language back when OpenEdge was first starting out, right?
Right, okay. Right. I mean, at that time we had a lot of third generation languages, let's call it that way then. Like COBOL, C. I mean, there was no Java at that time. There was no .NET.
But why were they called third generation languages? Who came up with that? Where is that from?
Well,
it's like some sort of secret story. Okay, so everyone just knows when you say, oh yeah, third generation language, they mean things like COBOL or C. Like, and then you were like, oh, we're the fourth generation language, and then they renamed to ABL. Like, was that a quick rename or was it like a long time after? Do you know?
That was a long time after.
Long time after. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing is that, so the level of the language, it's more depending on how close you have to program to the machine. I mean, you can start with machine coding bits and bytes. Yeah. You can do assembler, which is a higher level language. Then you have a third generation language, which still requires you to do a lot of coding yourself. I mean, you have to take care of memory allocation. And like if you compare this with C# or C++ or whatever, like defining pointers, reserving memory allocation, getting rid of that memory reuse, all that kind of stuff. The fourth generation languages as well, you don't have to care about it. You just need to concentrate on the business logic, on the business problem, the business solution.
Sam, is JavaScript a fourth generation?
It's like 10th.
Oh my God!
Here's what we forget. Like, and again, Roland and me are going to show our age here. But things were not this rosy when you started off programming back in the days, because you had to go very low level very quickly. Even like with C++ and Visual Basic and Fortran, I did like a couple of years of COBOL professionally, which was fun.
Oh my gosh, was that so much fun?
Yeah, I mean, it pays your bills, but you probably don't want to bet your career on COBOL. Maybe you do, because like people make a good amount of money with COBOL. I know. Big enterprise systems that still run on COBOL, and it's
big banks,
big banks, big hospitals that still run on COBOL mainframes. But things that we do in C# and JavaScript nowadays, Alyssa, they are so abstracted. We are so at such a higher level that we don't even care about memory.
Really? Because I like coming from JavaScript land to like learn C#, I was like, look how low level we are.
No.
Like, look how
C# is very, very high level. Unless you want to get into it, it'll let you go low and let you do things closer to the metal, but it is very abstracted.
So then ABL is like a step closer then, you're saying, than C#.
I think so. I mean, I don't know any ABL, but Roland, is that a fair statement?
I think it's the other way around, but let's see. I mean, that's what you guys can find out.
I'm very excited to see it now, because like it sounds, like I'm wondering like how akin to C# it is and where it lays.
Okay, and what was OpenEdge? Is ABL tied to OpenEdge always?
Yeah, the thing is, Progress, when it started, Progress was called DLC, the Data Language Company. Because at that time, it was really about the database and the language to access your database. That was the core. So that's why it was called. In the beginning, it was called Data Language Company. And then I think after a year or something, it was rebranded, renamed to Progress. And now their portfolio, it's called OpenEdge, but basically it's still the database and the ABL language. And of course, it has evolved. So now it is fully object-oriented. We have a multi-session app server. You can expose anything using REST services, stream to Kafka. I mean, so we have all the modern aspects, but the core strength is still that you are able to easily write your complex business logic. And the rest of it is all outside. I mean, like, if you want to expose your data to the outside world, if you do that in a CSV file, or you do it via a REST service, or you stream it to a Kafka, I mean, does not really matter. I mean, the business logic is still the core of your application. That's a value of your system.
And is the database kind of proprietary? Is it tied closely together with your business logic? And what type of apps are we talking about? Are these web-based apps? Are these desktop apps?
Anything. I mean, Progress, well, at 1984. So it was all character-based.
There was no web.
Still, like a terminal?
Yeah.
Wait, okay, so like how does this work? You write this code and it like makes like a little program that like people can like input stuff into, like a
exactly. So nowadays we use terminal as like as developers, like, but users don't see the terminal.
Right.
But that's how
Right.
it used to be. Like, if you still go to like some old airline counters or
Oh yeah.
banks, you'll still see them punching things into the terminal, like set up. But that was the
Yeah.
app, like that was the interface.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Oh, Unix based, of course.
Hmm.
There was no Windows. I mean, Windows is. Your screen was green or red. I mean, that amber or that was the only choice.
Mm.
So
OpenEdge is like the browser? No.
So
Horrible way of understanding it.
That's how. But that's how everything got started. So that was character based, and later on, of course, Windows was introduced. So we had a GUI desktop user interface, so you can create your Windows applications.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, then we got .NET, so we can also develop an application using .NET Forms. So the Windows GUI for .NET, that's how we call it. We have an ABL bridge, so you have a bridge between the .NET Forms and the ABL logic. Yeah. So now indeed, especially after when we took over Telerik. Telerik has all those great web-based controls and what have you, and or Angular-based and React and Vue and all those different flavors. So, well, the business logic still remains. I mean, the business logic, that's your core, that's running on an app server, on a Windows or a Unix or Linux-based system. And you can develop any UI you'd like with any web technology that you'd like. We just expose the logic to the outside world. That's it.
Interesting.
In a secure, performant way.
Ronald, you're sharing your screen. Do you mind just opening up another browser tab here? I just want to show folks, the width of the portfolio. So if you just go to progress.com, you'll see all the products that we do offer. And you mentioned like Telerik and Kenda UI. That's the part of the family that Alyssa and me come from. So you can do, what I'm hearing is you can, slap on any modern UI. It could be desktop, could be web. But your business logic is where it is, where it's talking to a database, maybe. Yeah.
And maybe you don't have a UI. Maybe you're just exposing your services. I mean, maybe just business to business. So there's no UI. that's yeah. So any kind of communication to the outside world. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So how do we start? How do we start learning this?
Yeah, so that's why I opened up this learning site. We opened up our training materials, so it's all for free. So anybody who's interested can become a Progress developer, getting all these materials and exercises and so on. So I think that's very cool. That's really helpful. So what I think it's good to start with some small introduction. What's Progress? What's the ABL? How does it work? What's a database? Just to get the picture. I mean, this is not the coding yet. This is just to get some idea.
Sure.
Yeah. As I just said, I mean, this is basically what I just explained. I mean, you can have any kind of client, and the business logic that's central and that uses your data, and that can be preferably, of course, a Progress database, but via ODBC, JDBC. I mean, we have all the connectors via Data Direct, so you can go to any data source. We have some native drivers for SQL Server, for Oracle database, but especially for the exercise and so on, we'll stick with the Progress database.
Okay, so that's interesting. I didn't know that you could, switch up and talk to any data, backend that you have. Alyssa, do you know these acronyms?
No.
Okay.
So, maybe.
I heard SQL. I know SQL.
Yeah. And it's all tied together. So I'll actually have to look this up as well. Like ODBC and JDBC and ADO.NET, these are all connectors essentially.
I've
from
never
a higher level.
heard of those, which is strange
Yeah.
because usually when people start throwing out acronyms, I've at least heard of them. Do you know why I've never heard of these? Why?
Because they're older school. So
Or
ODBC,
maybe it's like it's this next level of programming that like I
Mhm.
just haven't reached yet, and they're like keeping the cool things for
No. It's just you don't need to worry about these things because like most databases nowadays, like the endpoints that you and me talk to, they are JSON based or they have a RESTful endpoint.
You're saying these are not JSON based.
I think they can be, but that's not how they started out being. So ODBC was Open Database Connectivity. What was it? Roland?
Yep.
Yeah, it was a Microsoft thing, and then JDBC was a Java thing.
Yep.
Right. So these were standards, kind of before JSON, before SOAP. Do you know about SOAP?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is predating even SOAP, right? So these were standards that application programming languages would use to talk to a certain data source, right? So essentially,
like you have to be written in this way. It's like rules, like.
Yeah, more like connectors, like the plugs between a certain higher level language and the data source, if I'm describing that right. But Roland, please correct me.
No, that's correct. But the thing is, I mean, like if you just need a little bit of data, you have a website, you need to get some data, and then using a REST services, that's all just fine. But if you have a business application that, let's say, at the end of the month, it needs to process all the invoices and all the whatever. I mean, if you have millions of updates that need to be done, I mean, you're not going to do that via REST. I mean, then you want to have a native connection, with a fast native connection to your database, because you just have to do a lot of work. So that are the different levels. I mean, if you guys say, well, we're gonna build an Angular UI and we want to connect to your business logic, of course, that's use a RESTful API. I mean, that's
But what if we did like something .NET-y? Would it be RESTful? Same
idea. Yeah. So I think what Ronald is trying to say is, like, if you have an application that is just, reading and writing a little bit to a data source, that's fine over REST. But if you have a tremendous volume of transactional data that you're wanting to process, then REST may not be the best thing, because it's not fast enough for that volume of data. That's
so
when
you both are in agreement that REST can't do everything, is what you're saying to me right now? Because this is news to me.
Yeah, because I mean, we're talking about a certain volume of data beyond which a more native connection to the database is sought after, because it's going to slow you down if you want to go down to like the RESTful granular level.
Oh. And you're saying ABL does both?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can do both. We have customers who are running their application and they're reading data, but billions of records per week, really billions. And you can only do that via a very fast, maybe even a shared memory connection, because you need to do huge volumes. You cannot do that via REST. I mean, you're never going to get it to work. That will never be performing enough.
Okay. Well, if you have, like, let's say you start your application and you're doing it RESTfully, but then it's not fast enough. Is there a way to like migrate, or do you just have to rewrite if you want to like go in the other direction?
That's the layered approach, and I don't know if I got some nice pictures in here about.
You have pictures? Show us.
I thought this was going to be all terminal. Now you're saying you have pictures.
No, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for him to crack open the terminal and start typing. I'm so excited.
The thing is that, I mean, if your client, if that's a web UI, then I mean, if you're a user of a system and you want to get to your data, I mean, you want to show, I mean, your order history or your whatever. I mean, so maybe in your web UI you only need to show 4, 5, 6 lines of orders with some details, with some items and so on. But maybe in the background with your database that's normalized, so you need to access a lot of data, check the history, outstanding orders, all that kind of stuff. That's what the app server does. So in the background, so what you can see here with the business logic, that's running on an app server, and that app server is running maybe on the same machine as where your database is, or at least
app server.
App server. Well, that's a server side that runs your logic, that runs your code. So you run some code in the browser, but that's all the visuals. I mean, that's a presentation layer.
So like if you want to build your like SSR, like you're like building it over here and then serving it, it's the thing that's doing that building? No?
That's comparable. Yeah.
Oh, so it's nothing like that. Okay. I understand, Roland. I'm completely wrong.
It's a logic that needs to be close to your database. It's running on the same hardware. Let's put it that way. It's probably virtualized. Maybe it's running in a Docker container, but it's running close to the database. Yeah.
Okay.
And your browser can be anywhere. I mean, can be in.
I saw web speed client over in the sidebar and got distracted. Is that the one with like the billions of connections and like the lower level, or no? Which one is the fast one? Like because you've got the REST web services, SOAP-based web services, and then you web speed client.
Yeah,
is web speed the low level one? No, it's not.
No.
So what is if you wanted to go low level, what is that version of it called?
Yeah, so I don't got it in this picture here, but well,
because I was just going to look into it later so that I could see what it looks like. I'm very curious, like what the code looks like.
We'll get it up, Alyssa. We get it.
You have some. You've got some bits.
yeah. Of course. That's all in these materials also. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But maybe let's have a look at the database itself. I mean, in the end, you will need your data. It needs to be persisted, and that needs to be accessed. You need to be able to access it in a fast way. It needs to be processed in a fast way, and so on. And because these are business applications, where thousands of users are continuously working on the system, and there are batch processors who run all kinds of jobs that process everything that has been entered in the last week or whatever, and sends invoices and updates stock and all that kind of stuff. So the core of the application is your database. And that's where all kinds of technologies come into play. I don't think we will go into those kind of details, but the database server itself is also optimized. So we have before image writers, page writers, watchdogs. That's a complex system. I mean, the database needs to be able to write things to disk. Things need to be persisted, but it needs to do that in an asynchronous way. So it can still handle events, but then in the background, it's updating the database and it's taking care of transactions and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to care about it. That's a nice thing about such a database. You just start it up, and it is, most of it is self-tuning. I mean, you don't need a database administrator who has to keep an eye on it day in, day out. But it has to be performing and it has to be reliable. I think that's a big benefit of the Progress database itself. So
me and Alyssa we're supposed to be on another meeting. I just told the folks that we are learning OpenEdge and ABL, and we will go teach other folks. We'll see.
Yeah, so that's about the database stuff. So what you were trying to fire up, Alyssa, on your parallels.
Oh yes, you're gonna show me what it looks like once I get it working.
So that's Developer Studio, which is basically an Eclipse plugin.
Okay.
So that's
I don't know what Eclipse is, and I think I know what a plugin is.
So think about Visual Studio for Java developers.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an IDE.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an IDE.
Oh, you guys got yourself an IDE?
No. Eclipse is an open source IDE. And so we just have our own.
You guys are
plugin
fancy, and you went and made your own. That's so cool. Can I see it? Do you have it open? Can you run it?
I can. Well, yeah, I can.
You're on a Mac. So you said you don't use Parallels though. What's your alternative?
No. VMware Fusion, but then I have to start it up.
Fusion. I'm gonna write this down. There's other ways, Sam.
There are other ways, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start it up and then I can show you. Yeah. Okay,
VMware Fusion. Can you show me how you start it up? I want to see.
Ides of March.
Beware the IDs of March.
Yeah, well, this is VMware, so it's comparable to Parallax. I mean,
have you ever seen someone do this VMware Fusion bit, Sam?
Yeah, it's very popular. Yeah.
Oh, it was very popular.
That and Parallels.
When people say business, what does that mean, Sam? What am I supposed to take away from that being in the title?
Like business apps, essentially, things that run enterprise apps. Like you would not, create a business app over nights and weekends for yourself.
Oh, okay. So it could be swapped out with the word enterprise.
Yeah, essentially enterprise apps. Yeah.
Okay. Your business socks on. I love databases. Yeah. It's business time.
I mean, it's nothing stopping you, Nepal. If you want to create a business app, you could.
That's true. You did kind of just cut all of the fun out of our nights and weekends, Sam.
Well, I mean, the type of apps that you write as an indie developer, where you're just trying to, put something out for fun, it's not something that's going to run a business or an enterprise workflow. Maybe it's a mobile app, maybe it's a website. It's not just running somebody else's business, unless you have running your own business. That's fine too.
Is that because it just doesn't have the volume that a business app is going to have, like that needs to serve?
Yeah, and business apps or enterprise apps have certain needs on their workflows, and so essentially, what we title an enterprise or a business app is something that serves a specific workflow within an enterprise. So it's an app that people use during their work, during their daytime, mostly. So that's kind of what gets labeled. But I mean, the lines are blurred. Like, a lot of people do open source stuff, right? And you thought that this was just something you're doing nights and weekends, and then you realize people are depending on your open source library to run business applications, so the lines get blurred. Yeah.
So just a small introduction about the language, the ABL language itself. So, as I said, let's just concentrate on accessing the database, inputting data, getting data. I mean, that's the core. That's where it all starts with. And then later on we can continue, and then we can create nice object-oriented coding and so on. But this is really the basics. Yeah. So basically, this says it all. ABL is easy. It's easy to access data, manipulate data, and to show and display your data. So what it says here, this statement to access a database is for each statement. So for each, and then the name of your database table, where put your filter in there, and then you just don't display the data. That's all you need. And this was really revolutionary in those early years. I mean, you don't need to have any kind of logic to open cursors on your database or have SQL statements or whatever. This is it. You say for each customer, display customer. That's it. And then you get all your data on screen. And if you say for each customer, update customer, then you can already update it, and that gets inserted into the database, and all the transaction scoping is done, and so on and so on.
Looks like whenever you write tests. Like whenever you write tests for like Angular, it looks very much like statement based. You're like, this is happening, do this. Like, okay. So, but you're saying then that would show up.
Yeah.
Visually. Is there like a markup side to this as well?
No, this is just running on a Windows application. So this is just. This is just it's ABL list. Yeah, that's funny. So this just shows it in
this joke. Yeah.
ABL list. Yeah.
So tell me, Ronald, there's a go-to statement, like you can jump from one line of execution to a completely different line, like COBOL did.
Well, it's not a go-to or a call. You can just directly run internal procedures.
Oh boy, sounds dangerous.
It's
why?
No, it's
why
not.
Is this dangerous?
No, it's just like calling methods. I mean, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay then.
Yeah. So there's no so in procedural coding, that's the same kind of thing. I mean, you have internal procedures instead of methods, and you have to run them with parameters and what have you.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, this is how the ABL got started with the for each and the display and so on. And this is a list what you asked. Well, if you would do that display, well, then this is where it gets displayed. I mean, you just see an overview.
Okay,
so
there's a lot going on here. You just did a for each display customer.
Where is that coming from?
It's from the database. Yeah.
Where's the database?
Where's the database?
In a Docker container. Yeah, no. So what is this? This is running in a browser, but in the background, when you go to this website and it starts a Docker container to run your code. There's a database. I don't know. Yeah, probably database also running in a Docker container. So I think it starts two different Docker containers. One to execute the code, and one for the database behind it. Which also
Is
means
there
that if I
any-
stop my session, then everything is gone. It's not.
Oh, okay. No, this is nice. But I mean, do you have any visibility in what the database is? What are the tables? Is it relational? Is it non-relational?
Not from here. I mean, this is just to run code. That's it. And there's a database behind it.
So how do you know what you have access to?
Well, this is a demo database. With every Progress installation, then you also get a copy of that demo database. So that's a ERP kind of thing with customers and orders and items and sales reps and such. But the nice thing is that I can also do an update. So I can also say, well, let's do a find first customer, and let's say we do an update of the customer name, and never run this. And we just that's not allowed here. Oh shit! That's not allowed.
Also,
no, I cannot do that in this. No, because it's not
like it's
interactive.
probably the Docker container is not permanent.
No,
because
I cannot. No.
So I have questions.
I have so many questions.
I have a lot of questions. Yes. This is almost like what we would do with SQL or like a stored procedure. Here you are just, what is the connection from the application runtime to the database? Is it ODBC? What type of database is it?
Yeah. Well, you can create any kind of connection to the database. So as I said, if you really have a heavy loaded system, so your business logic does millions of transactions and billions of reads on a weekly basis, the ideal situation is to have a shared memory connection. So that means the execution of the code is running on the same machine as your database. So there's nothing in between it. There's no server, broker, what have you. You're directly accessing the database. Your code is directly accessing the database. So that's where the application server comes into play. The application server is running on that same hardware, on the same machine, and accessing database directly. And we call that shared memory connection. Now that's, for performance, that's the fastest you can get.
Just a quick question on the right hand side where it's executing, like I see like the platform being Linux. Could the database be hosted on Linux or Windows? Like, does it matter?
Doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter.
Interesting.
No. Same goes for the app server. You can have a Windows app server connecting to a Linux database. I mean, yeah. But then of course it's not shared memory. Yeah.
Okay.
Because then you have two different machines. Virtual machines, but still different machines.
Okay, so here you are straight up writing commands which are reaching into the database and bringing something back, right? Yeah. When you are a developer trying to build up your business application and you write up your, maybe like a stored procedure where you have all of your data access, is there a way to hide this thing from the app user so somebody cannot actually fire off a database command?
That's completely hidden. So let's say your users are running their application in the browser. Yeah. Those users, they're only accessing services from that application server.
I see. Okay.
So probably you've written that in, I don't know, JavaScript or Angular or whatever.
Right.
And so you're just accessing REST services.
Right.
That
so this
REST
is
service,
this is what you use to actually, you're building up the service essentially is what you're saying.
You're building up the services. Yeah. Okay. That's it. And of course you control who accesses those services because there's authentication behind it. And I mean, it's completely secure. That's all, because our application service basically it's an add-on to Tomcat. So we have all the security controls that you can use are already built in. I mean, that's we didn't have to create those ourselves. I mean, that's just running on Spring Security.
No, Alyssa, do you know about Tomcat?
No. What is
it? Do you want to tell us?
Well, Tomcat basically is an application server. So that's, you can run apps written in Java or any other language on Tomcat. Apache is a web server that's running in front of your app server. And in a typical production environment, the Tomcat, the application server, is running on your local network. Apache is in your DMZ, your demilitarized zone, with the reverse proxy, because that's all about security. Nobody can access your application server directly. I mean, that's hidden. That's behind a big firewall, 2 firewalls. So Apache then publishes the services to the internet. And anyone can access those services if you're authenticated and are authorized and so on. And that can be a web user interface, that can be a normal user, and that can be a business-to-business user, so somebody who just firing off REST events. There can be Kafka communication. I mean, anything.
Yeah. So was Tomcat based on Linux?
I think it's Linux-based, primarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I think so.
Now,
Sure.
in your runtime where it says you see your results, like I see the 2 things down at the bottom, like show result and show schema. So could you see more about the database schema?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So this is just.
Oh, these are all your tables essentially. So it is relational. Ah.
Yeah, it's a relational database. Yeah, that's been there from the beginning. And the thing like what every database has, you have a columns, you have indexes.
Mm-hmm. So it's very SQL-like essentially. Can you do joins? Like can you do give me customers who have orders or something like that between 2 tables?
Yeah. I could say, well, like here, for each customer, each order of a customer, something like this, and then display. What is it? The order number? I think order. I don't know. Something like this. I don't know.
Oh, look
and
at
you
that.
get an overview of. I mean, so it's like SQL. The joins are not explicit in the database schema, but they are defined by this of keyword. So orders of customer, which means that they have to have the same signature. So there are 2 integers, 2 characters, what have you. And there needs to be a primary unique index on the foreign key.
Mm-hmm.
On the primary key of the master table.
Alyssa, you're raising your eyebrows. Which part of this? Which part did you raise your eyebrows?
What's a forward key?
Foreign key. Okay. So my order, my order has a customer number in it because it's an order for that customer. So the customer number in the order table is a foreign key. Yeah.
Let me back up one more step. So think about this, Alyssa. Let's consider a table of customers. Okay. A table will have rows and rows of customers, right? So this is your collection of all of your customers. A primary key for a relational database table is a combination of either 1 or multiple fields in each of your rows that uniquely identify a customer, right? So if you say, here's Alyssa, Nicole, and here's all my demographic details, so then maybe a customer number is what uniquely identifies you, because there might be another Alyssa with the same name. So your first name, last name may not be unique enough. So a primary key is something that uniquely defines every customer in that table, right? Okay. And it could be 1 column, could be multiple columns, right? And you normally build up database indexes based on those primary keys, because that's how you quickly search through, a gigantic collection and find the Alyssa that you're looking for. So that's primary key. Now, a foreign key is when you have 2 tables, like in this one, you have a customer table and you have an order table. What is the link? Like you go on Amazon and you buy 10 things. Those are 10 orders, right? What is unique is you as a customer is the one that's buying those 10 things, right? So the foreign key is the thing that connects your orders table to the customer table. So in this case, could be a customer ID, right? So what is the link between each customer and each order, right? So that is the link, that's the foreign key, which essentially connects one table to another.
Yeah. Okay. So in this case, as you can see here, the order table has a field called custom. So this is the customer it belongs to. And that's also part of the index. The primary index here is based on customer number and order number, because order numbers don't have to be unique, but a combination of a customer number with an order number is unique. So that's we call that the compound index.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just weird because it's like sequely, but it's also has visuals. Like he just said with 2 columns, and it like changed how it was printing, which is
so,
like.
So this is all coming from the let's say from the character and the GUI based applications, where you just if you want to show the data to the user, then nowadays you have to use things like style sheets and what have you to make up the layout for the user. Back in those days, you didn't have to do that. You could just say, well, just display the customer with 2 columns, and all the data was on screen. Done. No layout stuff. No.
Right.
I mean, that's it.
Okay.
Of course, that has changed, and we're not using this anymore. I mean, but it's still in for that business logic. You still can use stuff like this. You can find your customers and your orders, and you can update prices, and you can, I don't know, create invoices based on all that kind of information and put something in. Yeah. That's where your logic resides. And it has nothing to do with UI. I mean, that's all running there on an app server with no user interface.
Okay. So it's not like whenever you make that call, it's adding in some styles to be rendered whenever it hits whatever the end goal is. Like, okay, I gotcha.
No.
Okay.
No. We call it a headless client. So our application server is fully functional, but it's headless. Okay. It doesn't have a UI.
Okay.
Hey folks, I'm just watching my time. I would have to run in about like 10 or so minutes.
Same.
Yeah,
I got the baby to get breakfast.
don't want the hangry baby. But this is so
but
good.
I need to. So like the next steps on learning this for me, I need to like the ID obviously having that running, but then it's essentially like I need to have like a database too, right? Like that I'm like going to connect to whatever application, whether it's .NET or Angular. So, and that data, like, does ABL care where it is? Like,
no, it doesn't. No, it can be on your own. No, it can be on your machine, can be on another machine. If it can access it through the network, then yeah.
Maybe instead of doing it all local, maybe we could spin up a VM and then we can have one endpoint to work off.
Yeah.
And I mean, the dojo sounds like such an easy place to start. Like I see like a share icon at the bottom. Like, can you share like an endpoint or something from this or no? It's like a link. Okay, so this is literally like a playground for somebody else to pull up this.
It's just a playground, and there are some examples, but not a lot of them. But some simple examples.
Look at that.
This is then this is using then classes and so on, and but there's also
I feel like for me and Alyssa to just learn the language, the dojo might be a good place to just tinker and fail because it's a playground.
I just want you guys to be careful because I mean there's so much in there because as I said we have those procedural coding, accessing database and so on. We have the object-oriented coding. We have something called dataset, similar to the .NET Pro dataset. We call it Pro dataset. So there's a lot of stuff in there that it's quite a lot. So I just like you to start with the basics and then we can build up from there. I mean, and then because then it still makes sense. I mean, of course there are things like how to instantiate classes and so on, how to implement the factory. I mean, it's but let's start with the basics. So with the training materials, that's really taking you step by step how to access a database, how to do a find, how to do an update, and so on. So if I spin up a VM for you guys, and you can just access it. There's Developer Studio, there's a database, everything is just in place, and you can just start using it.
Yeah, I think it'll be easier for having a consistent thing to go into and try. And even in the load samples that you're doing, there are things that we can just dive into and start learning, like if else checks, like loops or repeats. There's lots of things that we can
things like how do you create a where clause? Okay, the where custom. I mean, but that's the basics. I mean, that's where it all starts with.
Sure. Okay, so I think this was a good overview.
Are you still happy, Alyssa?
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to figure out if you because my main concern is, can I put if you spin up the VM, can I do write to it as well? Like, will I be able to add my own data? Because I want to put in my pony data.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
It's your database. You can do it.
So I can then get the Angular app I have, running off of it. That'd be cool to try. So.
Yeah, because that's one of the next steps, and then once you have some of that logic that does some stuff for you, then we can open it up and we expose it as a REST service, and then from anywhere you can just access that REST service.
Okay. Oh, well, very cool. Well, thank you, Roland.
No, this was a very good intro. Yeah, but next time around we will be ready to tinker a little bit more ourselves.
Thanks for hanging out with us. It was fun. And thank you, Roland, for letting us ask all
welcome.
Weird questions you weren't ready for.
Hope you got some weird answers.
Well, we will see you next time for some further diving into ABL and other things. As you know us, we stream on lots of different topics here. But thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your day or night, depending on where you are. So bye, everybody.
Bye, all. Thank you.